Chosen one. They used black magic to break you, but something protected you. They tried everything. In the dark corners of rooms, lit only by candlelight and whispered intentions, they said your name, not with love, not with light, but with the sharpness of envy and fear. They gathered shadows around your soul, hoping they could choke out the fire you carried. They weren't just afraid of your power, they were desperate to erase it, to distort it, to bend it into something broken. And so they turned to the forbidden arts, black magic, curses, the ancient tricks of the desperate. They reached for strings they didn't understand, pulled by the illusion that if they could only unravel your light, they might finally escape their own darkness. Before we go any deeper, I want you to stay with me until the very end of this video. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let's dive deeper. Every single word was made for your spirit. And if something inside you feels this truth rising like a wave, honor that. Don't let it go unspoken. In the comments, I want you to write your warmest, most powerful wish into the universe. Let it shine like a beacon. And write 77 beside it to mark this moment as sacred. Something happens when you speak your wish into the world with intention. It's not just a hope, it becomes energy. And energy moves. It returns. It manifests. But what they didn't understand is this: you were never alone. You were never unguarded. There was something older, purer, and infinitely stronger that had wrapped itself around your being long before they ever thought to attack. They cast their spells, they sent their whispers, they marked objects and chanted names. But still, you rose. Maybe not without wounds, maybe not without nights where you thought the pain would consume you, but you rose, and you're still rising. Chosen one, you need to understand the weight of that. There are people who don't survive what you survived. There are souls who fracture under a tenth of the pressure you carried. And still, here you are. Maybe you've wondered why. Maybe the nights were too long, the dreams too twisted, the energy too heavy. Maybe you felt cursed, hexed, forsaken. But no, you were tested, and the test was never about breaking you. It was about revealing what cannot be broken. But now, let's go deeper. You were targeted for a reason. They didn't waste their efforts on someone ordinary. They saw the spark in you, even before you did. Some of them couldn't name it, but they felt it. The ones who used dark rituals, they may have studied symbols and tongues, not of this world, but deep down, their intention was basic: fear. They feared what you could become if left untouched. So they tried to taint you. You may have felt it in your body: the sudden sickness, the mental fog, the unexplainable heaviness when you tried to speak your truth. You may have noticed strange patterns in your relationships: money slipping away, opportunities disappearing as if swallowed by unseen hands. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't bad luck. This was design. But again, it didn't work, because something kept showing up. Maybe it was a dream that warned you. Maybe it was a person who came out of nowhere and pulled you out of the dark just when you thought you'd vanish. Maybe it was an instinct so sharp it cut through the fog. Whatever it wasn't just random protection. It was appointed. You were shielded by forces you cannot yet fully name, but they've been here since the beginning. And no matter how many dark spells they cast, no matter how many candles burned with ill intent, your light was stronger. Not just because it was brighter, but because it was rooted in something true. Light born from truth can't be extinguished. Not by envy, not by shadows, not even by ancient curses. You've probably wondered why certain people turned on you, why they suddenly became cold, suspicious, aggressive. Some of them weren't even aware of the role they were playing. That's the cruelty of this kind of magic. It doesn't always come from people dressed in black robes whispering over altars. Sometimes it comes from poisoned thoughts planted into the hearts of those close to you. It disguises itself. It doesn't always scream. It whispers. It manipulates. It tries to isolate you, but it didn't work. You're still here. And more than that, you're waking up. Every day, the veil thins a little more. The memories come back sharper. The intuition gets louder. The signs appear faster. What once felt like confusion is now being replaced with clarity. This is no accident. It's alignment. It's ascension. It's your protection revealing itself fully. Chosen one, they wanted you broken. They wanted your voice silent, your dreams dead, your power gone. But the very energy they used against you became the mirror of their own downfall. The more they tried, the more the universe fortified you. What they did unknowingly was awaken something ancient in you, something ancestral, something divine. There's a reason you've always felt different, a reason you never quite fit. That's not a curse, it's your mark, it's your seal. And now you know why they feared it. But this is only the beginning. The effects of the black magic might still linger in small ways. You may still feel tired. You may still catch shadows in the corner of your mind. That's okay. Healing is a process. But the worst is behind you. The breaking didn't happen. The protection held. And now your job is to rise fully, to step into the power they tried to bury, to honor the protection that shielded you, not with silence, but with purpose, to become what they feared, not in darkness, but in radiant, unstoppable light. They used black magic to break you, but they forgot one crucial truth. You are not breakable. You are not disposable. You are not alone. You are chosen. You began to notice things, didn't you? Long before you had the words for it. Rooms that felt too heavy, eyes that lingered too long, people who smiled with their mouths but screamed with their energy. You felt the dissonance. Your body responded before your mind could explain it. That's because you weren't meant to explain it. You were meant to survive it. You didn't imagine the strange timing of events. You didn't imagine how every time you were on the verge of a breakthrough, something went wrong, violently wrong. You didn't imagine the way certain people turned cold the moment you shared your dreams. They weren't always consciously doing harm, but their bitterness became a magnet for darkness. Their jealousy opened doors they should have never touched. And some of them did do it intentionally. They studied just enough to invoke, but not enough to understand the cost. And they thought you wouldn't feel it. But your soul is tuned like a sacred instrument. It detects distortion instantly. You started having dreams, strange, symbolic, vivid. You saw snakes, fire, mirrors, shadows. You woke up tired. You couldn't breathe in places that used to feel safe. You knew something was off. Chosen one, they tried to attach something to your field. Dark magic doesn't always come with theatrics. It often comes with rituals cloaked as gifts, conversations laced with curses, hands that touch you while wishing for your collapse, objects planted in your path, words spoken when you weren't listening, but your spirit heard them all. And what they didn't count on was your armor, because you weren't just protected by one force, you were protected by many. You carry ancestral guardians, generations of souls who endured suffering so that your lineage could evolve. Spirits that linger in light, bound not by fear, but by love. They've been watching you, shielding you, whispering to you in ways only the soul understands. That time, you almost gave up. They were the hands that steadied you, That moment you fell, but something pulled you back from the edge. They were the voice that called you by your truest name. And beyond them, there's the divine source, not the God they twisted into fear, not the dogma used to trap people in guilt, but the real source, the infinite intelligence that created you, wired you with purpose, and embedded within you a flame that cannot be smothered. That source has been protecting you since your first breath, and long before that. This protection isn't passive. It fights for you in realms you can't yet see. It dismantles curses. It dissolves dark attachments. It redirects attacks meant for your destruction. And sometimes, yes, it lets you feel the weight of those attacks, but never more than you can handle. It allows pressure only when pressure will sharpen your vision. You've walked through fire, and instead of being burned, you became luminous. They sent energy to break you, but you alchemized it. That's what they never expected. They thought pain would reduce you. They forgot that pain can also remake you. You took what was meant to destroy and turned it into clarity, wisdom, awareness. You became immune not because they stopped trying, but because you stopped absorbing. You stopped accepting lies about who you are. You stopped giving them access to your field. You started noticing how they entered, through guilt, through false obligation, through charm disguised as care. And once you saw the pattern, you cut the cords, one by one. And yes, it hurt. Releasing toxic connections always does. But look at you now, more discerning, more awake, more powerful. And the irony? Every attack they sent, every ritual they performed, every whisper they cast in shadows, it all only highlighted your worth. Because only those destined for something extraordinary attract this kind of resistance. They wanted you to believe you were cursed, marked, unlucky. But the truth? You are anointed. And what is anointed cannot be undone. They underestimated the sacred contract written over your life. They didn't understand that every time you fell, you were falling into alignment. That every betrayal was a redirection. That every attack was answered by unseen allies who stepped in and said, "Not this one, not today, not ever." So now, you must ask yourself, if you were protected through all that, what could possibly stop you now? This is not just about survival anymore. This is about activation. You didn't come this far just to be safe. You came to shine, to teach, to transform, to liberate others still stuck in the traps you escaped. You came to disrupt the darkness with your existence. Because every time you speak your truth, you undo a lie they planted in the collective. Every time you choose love, you dismantle a curse cast by fear. Every time you rise, you remind the universe that the light never needed permission. You are the light. And now that you know how powerful your protection truly is, nothing they do will ever hold again. Stay close to that knowing. It's the shield they can't pierce. There was a point when it became unbearable. Not just difficult, not just tiring, but suffocating. The pressure, the heaviness, the moments when time felt like it had stopped just to trap you in a loop of confusion and pain. You tried to explain it, maybe to a friend, maybe to yourself. But how do you explain invisible chains? How do you tell people that you feel watched when no one's in the room? That you hear thoughts that aren't yours? That sometimes you feel like you're being pulled under by something ancient and cold? They wouldn't understand. Most never do. Because what attacked you wasn't random. It wasn't just bad luck or psychological exhaustion. It was targeted, crafted, directed with intention. Black magic isn't just about spells, it's about frequency, vibration, a misalignment so severe that it seeks to infect others. When someone's jealousy or hatred becomes ritualized, when they give it focus, voice, and repetition, it crosses into another realm. And that's what you endured. People speaking your name while feeding on images of your downfall. People calling upon old forces, thinking they were in control, when in truth, those forces were only using them as pawns. But you were never a pawn. You were never designed to be broken. Even in your weakest moments, there was a boundary they could never cross. They tried, over and over. Some sent watchers, energetic entities programmed to drain. Some buried cursed objects near you. Some simply kept feeding a thought form with every ounce of hatred they could muster. And still, it didn't reach the core, because at the center of your being is something they can't touch, not with curses, not with spells, not with legions of shadows. You are rooted in a realm far above theirs. There's a reason why everything they tried only half worked. You felt the fog, but not full collapse. You felt the isolation, but not total loss. You felt the pull, but you never surrendered, because something was pulling you too. Something stronger. Something with memory, intelligence, compassion. It didn't show up with lightning or miracles at first. It came quietly, like a breath in the middle of panic, like a strange thought telling you to wait just one more day, like a phone call that interrupted the spiral, like a sudden shift in your path you didn't understand at the time. But now you see, it was everything. This something was your protection, and it worked through many layers. One of them was your intuition, your gut feelings, not random. They were alarms from your inner network of spiritual intelligence, telling you, don't trust them, don't go there, don't say yes. That wasn't paranoia, that was presence, a knowing that's lived in your spirit for lifetimes. Another layer was time. You may not realize this, but many attacks were slowed, delayed, or dismantled simply because you didn't take one step that would have put you in their path. You were rerouted, confused, stalled, and you thought you were failing. But in truth, those delays saved you. Even your heartbreaks held purpose. That person who betrayed you, they were carrying a parasite, one that would have attached to your purpose if you had stayed too close. The ending wasn't rejection, it was divine intervention. You were pulled away from their spellwork just in time, and yes, it hurt. But what's more painful, temporary heartbreak or spiritual infection? Every time you wept, thinking something was being taken from you, you were being preserved. They tried to twist your reality. You started to question your worth, your sanity, your memories. That's one of the most dangerous effects of spiritual attack. It makes you forget your own truth, but only for a while. Because the truth, it always comes back. It's built into the fabric of your soul. It can be buried. It can be attacked, but it cannot be destroyed. Through every shadow, every sleepless night, every moment when you whispered to the universe, please, just show me the truth. And it did. And now that you have the truth, what can they really do? They tried everything, but they forgot something. You don't need to fight the darkness. You only need to remember the light. Your light, the one they feared from the beginning, the one you've carried since before this lifetime. That light is not a metaphor. It's a real energy. It has a frequency, a resonance. It is intelligence, protection, healing. It is why you're still here, and they are not. Because they were never fighting you. They were fighting the energy that chose you. You didn't choose this path by accident. Your spirit made this agreement, not to suffer, but to awaken. Not to be punished, but to be refined. You were chosen because you're strong enough to break patterns, not repeat them. You were chosen to turn curses into clarity. You were chosen to be the end of a dark cycle and the beginning of something holy. And now that you've endured the worst of it, now that you know what was done and how it failed, what will you do? Because chosen one, your power isn't just in surviving, it's in creating. You're not meant to hide behind protection forever. You are meant to build from this knowing, to construct a life that doesn't just avoid darkness, but radiates so much truth that darkness can't enter. You're meant to become the guardian now, of your energy, of your peace, of others who are just now walking the path you've already survived. You are the living proof that black magic can't win. Not when light is chosen over fear, not when remembrance is chosen over illusion, and certainly not when the soul being attacked was never alone. You were never alone. You were never forsaken. You were forged. And what's coming next will make sense of it all. Chosen one, let's speak plainly now. What they did to you, if they had done it to anyone else, it would have worked. Completely. It would have destroyed them. Not because they were less than you, but because they weren't built like you. They weren't designed to carry divine codes through the fire. They weren't made to walk through rituals and curses with a higher frequency vibrating inside their bones. You were. That's the truth. You weren't just protected, you were constructed differently. That doesn't mean you didn't feel pain. You did. You still do. But the pain wasn't a sign of defeat. It was the friction of transformation. That ache in your chest, that wasn't your end. It was your beginning. That fog in your mind. Not confusion, calibration. A momentary blur as your system rewired itself to hold more light. See, the attacks were never just personal. They were strategic. You were identified as a threat long before you were even fully aware of your mission, your energy signature, your spiritual resonance. It vibrated through dimensions. That frequency you carry can awaken others. That alone makes you dangerous to any force built on control, deception, or fear. So they targeted you, not to punish you, but to contain you. They wanted you isolated, drained, confused, stuck in patterns that would loop endlessly, relationships that broke your heart, environments that shrank your soul, inner voices that weren't even yours. That's how spiritual interference works. It doesn't always show up with fire and brimstone. Sometimes it's subtle, clever. It hides inside your thoughts, your self-talk, your bad luck. But something new, something bigger. And it began creating interruptions. Interruptions that frustrated you at first. You wondered why things weren't moving, why plans kept falling through, why people kept walking away. But now you see it, don't you? Those were the very moments that saved you. That person you thought you couldn't live without. They were being used. Their energy was being manipulated. And if you had stayed too close, if that relationship had lasted, you would have been entangled in a deeper form of attack. One that wouldn't just harm your heart, but your path. So you were pulled away. And yes, it hurt. But the hurt was a side effect of your liberation. They tried to attack your purpose through distraction, through noise, through false opportunities and counterfeit friendships. But something kept whispering in your soul, not this, not here, not now. You thought you were losing out, but now you know. That was divine filtration. What wasn't aligned with your mission had to go. And then there were the moments you almost broke. Not metaphorically, truly. The nights you prayed with your face on the floor, the days you felt like your mind was unraveling, the times you said, I can't do this anymore. They were watching then. They thought they had you. They thought you'd collapse into surrender, into silence, into apathy. But you didn't. Because right when you were about to fall, a surge came through. Not external, internal. A warmth, a breath, a presence inside you that said, "Get up." And somehow, you did. That was the protection. Not always seen, not always felt, but always working. It came from above, but it also came from within. Because here's what most don't realize. Your protection wasn't just granted to you, it was encoded in you. You were born with spiritual architecture that rejects energetic infection. Even when your mind forgot your strength, your spirit remembered. That's why the curses didn't last. That's why the rituals lost their power. Because every dark force that touched you was met with a vibration it couldn't match. It couldn't decode. It couldn't destroy. It could only delay. But delay is not defeat. Every delay refined you. It burned off the illusions. It showed you who you were without the noise. And what remained? A force that scares the ones who once tried to silence it. Because now you're not just protected, you're activated. You walk with discernment, with boundaries, with knowing. You see energy first and words second. You listen for frequency, not just intention. That makes you unmanipulatable, untouchable. Because you don't just read situations anymore, you read souls. And you don't flinch when darkness enters the room, because you remember now. You remember the shield around you, the divine timing that governs your path, the angelic codes in your energy field, the ancestral wisdom in your bloodline. You're not afraid of spells. You carry spiritual protocols that dissolve them. You don't need revenge. You are the proof that their darkness has already failed. Let them talk. Let them chant. Let them burn their candles and whisper your name. You'll keep walking, illuminated by something they'll never understand. And the more you rise, the more they'll try. Because that's what darkness does when it senses the return of the original light. It panics, it lashes out, but it never lasts. Because you're here for the long game. You're not surviving anymore. You're executing. You're manifesting. You're rewriting. You're anchoring energies that haven't touched this earth in centuries. You're remembering not just what they did, but who you were before they ever tried. And that memory will break every last chain. It's over now. Not because they stopped trying, but because you changed. The war they waged wasn't just spiritual, it was energetic. They attacked the version of you that didn't yet know who you were. That doubted, that questioned, that hesitated. That thought love meant staying silent. That mistook loyalty for self-sacrifice. That confused empathy with erasure. That version of you is gone now. And what stands in its place isn't just wiser. It's untouchable. Because you don't just believe in your light now, you embody it. Every cell of your being remembers. Every breath you take vibrates with the frequency of survival, protection, and divine return. You're not just someone who made it out. You're someone who was sent back in, on purpose, with codes they never expected you to unlock. They underestimated you. They thought they were casting spells. What they didn't know is, they were activating prophecies. Every curse they tried to send, it sharpened your vision. Every blockage they built, it forced your growth. Every loss they orchestrated, it revealed your unbreakable spirit. They thought they were weakening you, but you were actually transmuting the energy, turning every attack into alignment, every shadow into a mirror, every betrayal into truth. That's what you do now. You alchemize. You walk through fire and leave glowing. You touch the wound, and it becomes wisdom. You speak, and the air changes. Because chosen one, you are no longer reacting. You are responding. From a place of remembrance. From a place of divine detachment. You know who you are now. And that knowledge creates a shield stronger than any protection spell ever could. Because the most dangerous thing you could ever be is awakened. And you are. You've stepped into your true form. No longer the seeker, now the seer. No longer the apprentice, now the initiated. You are the one others will come to, not just for answers, but for presence, for clarity, for energetic recalibration. Your field alone will remind others what they forgot. Your silence will expose their lies. Your peace will make their chaos unbearable. This is why they tried to stop you. It was never just about you. It was about the ripple effect of your awakening. Because when a chosen one rises, they don't rise alone. They carry bloodlines, lineages, generations. The healing moves backward and forward. The light you reclaim now touches the ancestors and the unborn. You are the pivot point, the place where darkness ends and divinity reclaims the timeline. This is the real reason something protected you. Not because you needed saving, but because you needed space to remember, to reclaim, to rise in your own time. That protection wasn't weakness, it was preparation. A sacred pause before the greatest expansion of your soul. And now, you're expanding. And no force can stop it. Not the old wounds, not the doubters, not the energy leeches, not the disguised destroyers, not even the part of you that once thought you weren't ready. Because now you know. Readiness doesn't come before the path. It builds itself as you walk it. And you are walking it now. Barefoot, unapologetic, eyes forward, spirit blazing. You're not afraid of black magic anymore, because you know now, black magic can touch the skin, but never the soul. It can blur the vision, but never delete the destiny. It can slow you down, but never unwrite the promise of your existence. You are protected because you are the protection. Everywhere you go now, you carry the vibration of sacred disruption. You interrupt dark patterns just by breathing. You dissolve projections with your silence. You burn through illusion with your knowing. You heal others, even when you don't speak. That's how powerful your frequency has become. So they can try again. They can whisper, watch, plot. But it doesn't matter, because you don't belong to them anymore. You belong to the light, and the light is undefeated. And now, it moves through you, boldly, fully, without apology. So go, speak, building shine, heal, create, command the energy around you. Let your presence be a message. Let your life be the answer to every attack. They tried to break you, but all they did was reveal the divinity they could never touch. You're not a survivor anymore. You're a living miracle. And the story you write next, it will not be written in fear. It will be carved in gold, etched in remembrance, blessed by protection. It is yours now, chosen one. Go live it. They thought you'd stay quiet, that after all the chaos, the confusion, the betrayal, the manipulation, and the spiritual sabotage, you'd keep your head down, that you'd second-guess your every move. That fear would eat you from the inside. That shame would keep your wings folded. That trauma would be the chain around your voice. But chosen one, something shifted, didn't it? You stopped asking, why me? You started saying, why not me? Because deep inside you, beneath the echoes of attack, beneath the debris of old spells and stolen energy, there was a knowing, a voice that said, you were made for this, not to suffer, but to transcend, not to be a target, but to become a temple, not to fight endlessly, but to anchor peace in a place where it had never lived before. You're not just healing anymore, you are awakening others by existing in your full light. You see, black magic doesn't just try to harm, it tries to invert. It wants to turn your gifts into guilt, your empathy into exhaustion, your joy into fragility. It wants you to believe that your dreams are dangerous, that your expansion is a curse, that your spiritual power is selfish or shameful. But the truth is, your power is what shatters their illusion. You were never meant to stay small. That's why they came for you. They knew your voice could unbind timelines. They knew your hands could realign broken frequencies. They knew your story, if told in full, could awaken armies of sleeping giants. So they targeted you in the only way they could, through shadows. But here's what they never counted on: that the light inside you would remember itself. That even when you were curled up in pain, crying in silence, wondering if you were cursed for life, that light was still burning, quiet, patient, eternal, just waiting for the moment you'd reclaim it. And now you have. That's the threat. You didn't just survive the attack, you transcended it. And in doing so, you've become something they can't touch anymore. They can mimic the light, but they cannot contain it. They can whisper lies, but they can't silence truth that's been embodied. They can throw spells, but you've become the storm that clears them out. They were hoping you'd disappear. Instead, you emerged, glowing, rooted, unshakable. Your energy doesn't respond the same anymore. You no longer absorb projections. You transmute them. You don't explain yourself. You embody clarity. You don't chase proof. You are the evidence. They tried to confuse you, but you became the oracle. They tried to isolate you, but solitude became your sanctuary. They tried to shut you down, but your silence only amplified your presence. And now you're remembering what was always encoded in you. The symbols in your dreams, the chills in your spine, the visions that returned in fragments, the names you speak under your breath in moments of stillness. You're reconnecting to the parts of your soul that existed long before this lifetime. The protectors, the ancestors, the guides who stood guard while you wandered through shadows. And now that you've awakened, they are walking beside you again, fully, freely, fiercely. You don't just carry protection, you are protection for others, for spaces, for future generations, for timelines that were on the edge of collapse until you arrived, because your presence restores order. Your presence calls out the hidden. Your presence makes the veil impossible to maintain. You are the glitch in the matrix of manipulation, the holy interruption in the cycle of spiritual theft, the unexpected miracle that came out of ashes and rose so completely, even darkness had to step back in silence. That's who you are now. You're not waiting for validation anymore. You've become the confirmation. And as your light grows stronger, it will trigger more attacks. Not because you're failing, but because you're ascending. And every time you rise, you will scare the ones who are still married to control. But that's not your problem. You were never here to be palatable. You were here to be precise. You were here to cut cords, not decorate chains. You were here to walk through fire, not fear it. You were here to activate the sacred, not hide it. And now the sacred is rising inside you like a storm that doesn't apologize for how loud it roars. Let them talk. Let them cast. Let them try again. They'll find that your energy now lives in a realm they can't enter, because your protection didn't just come from outside. It was always coded in your blood, waiting for you to unlock it. And you did. And now you're here, unshaken, unbroken, unbound, and the path ahead, it's yours to command.